It is a touch after 4 p.m. and as we usually do right here on SA Today with myself and Madlanga Sihume, we get into studio Canny Maphanga, our senior reporter, to unpack all the latest at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Of course, as part of our segment in Connecting the Dots. Canny, and it would seem a lot of the attention still lies on the operations of IDAC, but also the conduct of its former boss, that's Andrea Johnson. What transpired this week?
Well, absolutely. And good afternoon to you and to the viewers. It certainly was a shorter week of 3 days of testimony, but we have more revelations that raise more questions about the lifeline of IDAC as a unit that is designed to fight high-level corruption. That is because more lies were produced on behalf of Advocate Andrea Johnson in terms of the testimony that she had given to the Madlanga Commission. And of course, we're starting to hear elements of alleged political interference with the mention of Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. And of course, we do expect the Commission to continue with this evidence next week with Fadil Adams, who really is the root to all of this chaos, to begin his testimony, or rather is expected to begin his testimony on Tuesday. We'll try to keep it short in 30 minutes as we wrap this leg of the Madlanga Commission's hearings. The Commission's lens remained firmly planted on IDAC, leading to more of its former head, Advocate Andrea Johnson's alleged lies, exposed. And the probe warmed up to the possible cause behind IDAC's interest in anything but its mandate. Could the answer allegedly be found in Major-General Feroz Khan or Police Minister Senzo Mchunu? A very warm welcome to our SABC3 viewers. I'm Canny Maphanga, and let's continue to connect the dots on this Madlanga Wrap.
I had heard about Advocate Johnson's husband and Mr. Khan being friends. Then all of this happened. So I put 4 and 4 together, and I realized that there were other aspects at play.
I sort of found myself in an offside position, or at least handled a ball with my hands. It feels like I was set up. Not only me, but Hlachwayo as well. I think junior as she was, I don't think she was supposed to have been involved in this case.
Advocate Johnson instructed me to prepare one umbrella, Section 28, for all crime intelligence matters. May I please have a book?
The questions I raised remain unanswered on the material in the docket. The significance of this is twofold. First, it demonstrated that the arrest had been premature. Second, and more fundamentally, the nature of the unanswered questions demonstrated that the preliminary investigation had not been properly conducted. Alternatively, that there was no case.
All right, let's begin here. It was a short week before the probe, but the allegations against Johnson and her leadership at IDAC continue to mount. This as the latest witnesses affirmed the allegation that there was no case against crime intelligence boss Lieutenant General Dumsani Khumalo and others in the Mukwele matter.
The team ought to have asked themselves these questions. When I come in 2 months after the arrest, I was not supposed to be asking these questions, especially if a person is charged with, that's what I'm saying, why did you charge them with corruption? Taken together, the questions I raised remain unanswered on the material in the docket. The significance of this is twofold. First, it demonstrated that the arrest had been premature. As I put it in my correspondence at the time, the matter had been rushed to court when it was not ready. Second, and more fundamentally, the nature of the unanswered questions demonstrated that the preliminary investigation had not been properly conducted. Alternatively, that there was no case.
Well, this begs the question yet again. If there was no case, why was Johnson rushing Project Diversion and insisting that top generals such as Lieutenant General Dumsani Khumalo and General Canny Maphanga be charged? On the latter, Johnson allegedly went as far as instructing team members not to inform Maphanga of their investigations so that he would be left to lie in Parliament.
It looked and obviously became evident that there was a line of march, and that line of march was to get General Khumalo and General Maphanga in an accused box. And so obviously at some point there was talk about if he lies at portfolio committee, but this is well after. I think this is in February or March, and this was just between Padiachi and myself and Mr. Perumal, where if he lies, we can at least charge him for perjury.
He would have lied to a committee of parliament, which in itself is an offense.
So the plan was to set him up.
Johnson's determination to see these matters in court by May was allegedly bolstered by a meeting she had with Police Minister Senzo Mchunu at his residence in January. Ramsamy testified that after this said meeting, Johnson had a specific request about Cedric Nkabinde, Mchunu's chief of staff, who not only has a history with police watchdog IPID, but was also once friends with KZN top cop Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
If I may just put it as to how I understood it in the meeting on the 22nd of January. I want something on this guy.
Meaning what in your speak?
In my head, Advocate Johnson wanted dirt on Mr. Nkabinde.
After the break, more of Johnson's lies were exposed when evidence showed that an IDAC manual existed, but it was allegedly deliberately bypassed in pursuit of certain targets. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. The pattern of Johnson's alleged untruths continue to grow. This, as Ramsamy broke down over Section 28(1) authorization Johnson presented under Ramsamy's name, which was used to commit further alleged unlawful acts in IDAC's investigation into crime intelligence matters.
Is there anything else you want to say on this topic of the 28(1) before I ask the Chair if we can adjourn for now?
I want an age analysis, an ink age analysis of that 28(1) signature.
On Advocate Johnson's 30 May.
Because really, this not only is Advocate Johnson deceiving the commission, she's throwing a junior under the bus. What kind of leadership is that? Is that really leadership? And now I'm speaking from emotion.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsamy.
With the same allegations about IDAC being affirmed by different witnesses before the probe, the question became, where was the structure, the guidelines, or the head of investigations that was supposed to safeguard it? In comes Matthew Sissoko, who did nothing when the illegalities surrounding the crime intelligence matters were brought to his attention.
And because you did not do anything, it looks like you were part of the problem. You were part of the reason why the manual was not followed to the letter.
Chair, I will take responsibility for that.
In addition, Sissoko was not in the dark about these alleged unlawful acts. Evidence showed that he was in email correspondence and he may have played an active role. This as all these alleged unlawful acts took place while an IDAC manual was in place and approved, meaning that the manner in which IDAC handled crime intelligence matters was allegedly deliberate.
To the extent that Advocate Johnson testified that the manual was just a draft, she would have been misleading this commission. Well, at its lightest, she would have lied to this commission.
Yeah, I don't understand why she said that. The manual was signed by myself and her, and then at her instruction, it was distributed to all IDAC staff.
Now, with the IDAC manual being disregarded and the law being subverted to allegedly serve certain interests, this begs the question, is IDAC worth saving at this point or should it be disbanded? KSAC Executive Director Lawson Naidu is standing by to unpack this with us after the break. Thank you for staying with us as we continue to take the conversation forward with KSAC Executive Director Lawson Naidoo, who joins us on Connecting the Dots, I think for the first time. A very warm welcome to you, Lawson Naidoo, to Connecting the Dots. A lot to discuss as IDAC continues to be the center of the focus at the Madlanga Commission, but it does not look promising, nor does it inspire rather public confidence, does it?
Good afternoon, Canny, and thank you very much. Well, look, the evidence that we've heard over the last few weeks at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry regarding the operations of IDAC are certainly, of great and serious concern, particularly those directed at the former head of IDAC, Andrea Johnson, who has, increasing questions to answer, and hopefully she will have to come back to Madlanga to answer those questions and to take responsibility for the actions that she has taken. But it certainly puts IDAC in a really poor light at this point in time, and ultimately, undermines the fight against corruption and state capture, because the IDAC was specifically set up as a dedicated agency to pursue cases emanating from, for example, the Zondo Commission and other commissions of inquiry into state capture and large-scale corruption. And I think what we're seeing in the evidence that's emerging in that these targeted investigations, unlawful as they may have been, against senior officials, both within the SABC and within crime intelligence, certainly diverted from the ability of IDAC to really go after the corruption that they were set up to deal with, which is those issues, as I say, emanating from the Zondo Commission and elsewhere.
And Lawson, while this is a fairly new body, I don't think it's giving the sense that these are institutional issues, because it's far too young for that to be the case. But it seems that there was a select network within IDAC where it seems that cases within crime intelligence were pursued in a particular manner, because Sissoko does advise to the Commission that in other matters they were able to follow the IDAC manual and they were able to follow due process in terms of taking matters to court. They seem to only be a rush with this particular matter. So in light of that particular evidence, is it an issue of just getting rid of the quote-unquote bad apples, or is this institution really at severe risk at this point?
Well, look, I think primarily it's a case of getting rid of the bad apples. Johnson has left office now. 3 other senior investigators have been suspended, as we know already. But the issue here is, these were, issues that IDAC really had no business dealing with in terms of, crime intelligence and the National Commission of SABC. These are issues that fall outside of the mandate, ordinarily fall outside the mandate of an entity like IDAC, which has a very focused mandate on corruption, state capture, and the like. And therefore, there seems to have been, some other agenda at play here to target those specific officials. And whilst, some of the dots are beginning to be joined, Canny, I don't think we've gotten to the end of it yet. The testimony this past week seemed to bring, former Police Minister Senzo Mchunu into the fray. But that's got to be tested further by Madlanga. But, the overall picture has yet to emerge, I would say. But I think we really need to be careful. This is an agency that South Africa desperately needs to deal with corruption and state capture cases. The fact that we now know that there is an operating manual in place, but it was ignored or bypassed in pursuing some of these issues, I think should not detract from the fact that it has the procedures in place. All of the IDAC investigators and prosecutors are aware, and we need to ensure that they stick to their mandate, to their legitimate operating procedures, and that the checks and balances that an institution like IDAC requires, such as the oversight judge, are properly in place. And I think it was evident, from the testimony of both Matthew Sissoko as well as Drashantha Ramsamy, that had the office of the oversight judge been in place properly at the time they were, being asked to turn a blind eye or become involved in underhand investigations at IDAC, they had nowhere to go to at the time. And had that office been properly established, as it should have been when IDAC itself was established 2 years ago, and I think that is something that government must take responsibility for, that they waited 2 years before the office of Judge Takalani Ralinga was established in March of this year. So that was a gap that allowed these shenanigans to continue without the proper checks being in place.
And lastly, Lawson, what happens to IDAC as a unit now? I mean, you have this need for South Africa to have a strong unit that can fight corruption, but there is a lot of problems in the manner in which it does things. It's not so much the structure, but we do even see with simple things such as how they recruit for IDAC, we see that everybody has a history. You see that Sosoka has a history with IPID and other police matters. We're seeing that Pariachi also has a history in crime intelligence. Cedric Kabinde herself, the chief of staff, has a history in IPID. It seems that everyone was recruited from the same network, and this could have played a role in these alleged factional battles within crime intelligence. How then do you rid this institution of that kind of problem, and how then do you create a future that is prosperous for IDAC?
Well, look, I mean, I think the first point is a really important one, Canny, is that, IDAC is as we said, just 2 years old. And most of the people that would have come there, certainly on the investigation side, would have come from existing law enforcement agencies, such as SABC, the Hawks, and crime intelligence itself. And they would have brought those factional, contests within those institutions into IDAC. And we know from the earlier testimony at Madlanga that all of these law enforcement agencies are similarly afflicted with factional battles, seeking access to power and resources. So IDAC is no different in that regard. But the clean-out that needs to happen is across the law enforcement system. And one is to hope that the final report of Justice Madlanga would deal with those issues as to how to actually clean up the whole of the law enforcement system. And one of the issues that we certainly hope that he will focus on is the issue of the appointment mechanism for senior officials within all of these entities, be they SABC, crime intelligence, the Hawks, or indeed IDAC, that they need to be open, transparent processes with clear criteria in place, so that we know exactly the kind of people that we're looking for. The fact that someone's been a good prosecutor, as by all accounts Andrea Johnson was during her time at the NPA, does not necessarily make a good head of IDAC, because the ethical and moral standing of such a person, the leadership qualities that are required, and the weaknesses in that regard that were pointed out by Trushanta Ramsamy are clear for all of us to now see. But how is it that it was missed in that appointment process? So the appointment processes, I think, will be the first step in beginning to restore public trust, getting the right people in place to ensure that proper procedures are followed, and that actually the mandate of IDAC is actually executed. I mean, it's beyond question that IDAC should have been paying greater attention to, for example, getting full access to the Zondo database so that they could pursue those investigations that came out of the Zondo reports, that they needed greater forensic skills and other specialist skills which have not been brought into IDAC. And that's where their focus needs to be. And the next leadership strata at IDAC needs to focus on those issues.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. KSAC Executive Director Lawson Naidoo, just highlighting that the future of IDAC can be bright if you look at some of those appointment processes and, of course, ridding it of those so-called bad apples. With the latest developments that have shown alleged untruths from Johnson and an IDAC that allegedly bent the rules to pursue certain targets, let us hear your thoughts.
Well, as of late, I'd like to add on to the fact that, honestly, what they're doing, they're currently wasting time. Why am I saying that? Because as the evidence has been concluded, they're going to jail, in all honesty, because in the way that things have been happening as of late, with the evidence and, all of that has been accumulated, I like to say that them literally just being in the hot seat, it's futile. It's very, very futile.
I think it's very wrong to cook a case, and the commission is doing good by, people who do corruption, everything, they need to be just in jail, like he is.
I think that Madlanga actually exposing such things for us, for the public, is kind of making us a bit safe and actually a bit skeptic at the same time, because we don't know how it will end. Definitely these are big names on the table. We are skeptic to know if justice will be saved.
Well, that brings us to the end of this week's wrap. It's time to say goodbye to our SABC3 viewers and gear up for the next leg of hearings, which will resume on Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. The man whose Section 27 referral affidavit serves as the root to all of this chaos, MP Fadil Adams, is expected to take the stand. Did his complaints include the PKTT? Was his statement allegedly manufactured? And did he receive classified documents under his door? Find out next week at 4 p.m. as we continue to connect the dots.